1947, a murder in Hollywood shocked the world.
So we're diving into one of LA's most infamous cases today, the Black Dahlia Murder from 1947.
January the 15th, 1947, around 10 a.m., a mother named Betty Bersinger is walking with her 3-year-old daughter through the quiet, residential streets of Limert Park.
It's a normal Wednesday morning. She's heading to a shoe repair shop when something in a vacant lot catches her eye. At first glance, it looks like a discarded store mannequin lying in the weeds. But as she gets closer, something feels wrong. The positioning is too deliberate, too precise. And then she realizes this isn't a mannequin at all. It's a human body. But not just any body. This was something Los Angeles had never seen before. Something that would haunt investigators for decades.
The body was severed completely in half at the waist, cut with medical precision between the second and third lumbar vertebrae. The only place you can divide a body without cutting through bone. And this takes real precision. It wasn't done with an axe or saw. This was surgical.
Yeah, and the positioning was deliberate. Arms above the head, legs spread apart, the two halves about a foot apart from each other. So someone wanted this to be discovered exactly as it was.
And they discovered there was no blood at the scene.
None. The body had been completely drained of blood and washed clean. Everything meticulously cleaned. The facial mutilations were precise too. Cuts from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating what investigators called a Glasgow smile. The right side was 3 inches, the left side was 2.5 inches. The autopsy also revealed ligature marks on her wrists, ankles, and neck. She'd been bound for hours before a cerebral hemorrhage from blows to the head. Now, here's where 1947 technology becomes fascinating. How do you identify a body when you don't know who it is?
So the LAPD used something called a sound photo, essentially a primitive fax machine, to send the fingerprints to FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. They identified her in exactly 56 minutes, out of over 100 million fingerprint records on file.
The victim was Elizabeth Short, 22 years old, who'd arrived in Los Angeles just 6 months earlier, in July 1946. Elizabeth had come to LA hoping for acting work.
The American dream.
She was working as a waitress, staying with various friends, moving between hotels and boarding houses. So after her discovery, the scale of the investigation that followed was unprecedented. 750 investigators, 400 sheriff's deputies, and 250 California State Patrol officers working this one case. They questioned over 150 suspects, and bizarrely the confessions started pouring in. Over 60 during the initial investigation.
But there was real evidence coming from the killer. On January 24th, someone mailed Elizabeth's belongings to the Los Angeles Examiner newspaper. Birth certificate, photographs, social security card, an address book. All of it cleaned with gasoline, just like her body. The envelope was addressed with letters cut and pasted from movie advertisements. Then came the taunting letter. Here it is. Turning in Wednesday, January 29th, 10 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia Avenger. That nickname Black Dahlia came from the press, right?
It was playing off a 1946 film noir called The Blue Dahlia, starring Alan Ladd. The press turned this investigation into a circus. The Los Angeles Examiner ran it as their lead story for 35 consecutive days straight.
The killer never turned himself in, of course. But 3 weeks later, another body was found. Jeanne French, known as the Red Lipstick Murder due to expletive language written on her torso in lipstick. Some investigators suspected a connection. The positioning was similar, the mutilation deliberate. But that case was solved. French's husband confessed. Still, the timing was curious.
Back to Elizabeth Short, the medical precision kept pointing investigators towards someone with medical knowledge. The hemicorporectomy procedure, the surgical cuts, the way the body was drained and cleaned. Which brings us to the main suspects that serious investigators considered. Dr. George Hodel, a Los Angeles physician who ran a VD clinic in the 1940s. This theory comes from his own son, Steve Hodel, a retired LAPD detective. After his father died in 1999, Steve found photographs he believes show Elizabeth Short. But here's the bombshell. Police actually wiretapped Dr. Hodell's house for 18 days in 1950. Steve claims the transcripts show his father saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia." They can't prove it now. Dr. Hodell was one of 6 prime suspects at the time. The head deputy district attorney said in 2004 that if Hodell was still alive, there might be enough evidence to indict him.
There's also Leslie Dillon, a bellhop and former mortician's assistant. Author Pugh Eatwell argued in 2017 that Dillon killed Elizabeth at the request of nightclub owner Mark Hansen. Hansen's address book was one of the items mailed to the newspapers, and Dillon's mortician background would explain the surgical precision of the bisection.
Both suspects were actually investigated by police at the time. Both had medical knowledge. Both could have performed the precise cuts and known how to drain a body completely.
So his last confirmed sighting of Elizabeth was January 9th at the Biltmore Hotel downtown. The bell captain, Harold Studholme, watched her use the lobby phone around 10 p.m. Something outside those glass doors got her attention. She walked out and turned south. 6 days of torture and murder followed. Someone had a location where they could work undisturbed for hours, maybe days. Somewhere they could drain a body completely, wash it with gasoline, then transport it to Limert Park in the middle of the night. The killer knew anatomy. They knew how to bisect a body without cutting bone. They understood blood drainage. They had access to gasoline for cleaning. They had transportation.
And they were methodical enough to cut letters from movie advertisements, mail evidence to the press, and taunt police with written communications. After 75 years of investigation, hundreds of suspects, thousands of tips, books, documentaries, amateur sleuths, the case remains completely unsolved. No arrests have ever been made. No charges have ever been filed. Elizabeth Short's killer was never found. It's one of the oldest cold cases in Los Angeles County history. The LAPD officially keeps it open, though most of the original investigators have passed away.
So somewhere in Los Angeles in January 1947, someone committed one of the most calculated murders in American history, taunted police with evidence and letters, and then disappeared back into society. They might have lived a completely normal life for decades afterward, had a family, a career, friends who never suspected anything. The person who tortured and killed Elizabeth Short might have died peacefully, having never faced justice.
That's what makes this case so unsettling. The precision, the planning, the taunting, and then nothing. Complete disappearance into normal society.
Elizabeth Short became famous in the most tragic way possible, but her killer achieved the perfect crime, the Black Dahlia case, over 75 years later still unsolved.